only in Africa. You'll find demonstrations in Colombia. You will find the other time in France, they were burning tires on the streets in Paris, and so on and so forth. So every country has got its political challenges. It's not only in Africa. It is all over the world. And those political challenges can be resolved within those countries themselves. You need to address the issues that the youth are raising. Like in Kenya, they are talking about the cost of living. They're talking about unemployment in Kenya. They're talking about corruption. You see, they talk about ethnic discrimination, things like those. So those are challenges that can be resolved within the context of Kenyan society. The same thing in Mozambique. They're talking about the elections. Elections have just been held, and some people believe that they are probably not as transparent. That there were some kind of cheating, probably in the process of announcement of results. That happens in virtually every society. You saw it in the U.S. the other time. People marching to the Congress, storming the Congress. So it is not only happening in Africa. It's happening all over the world, and there are solutions to those problems.
Thank you, thank you. And the very last question, let's have the gentleman there.
Right Honorable Dr. Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, Republic of Kenya, and candidate of African Union chairmanship. I have an important question. How would you prioritize address African Continental Free Trade Area AfCFTA implementation? How do you strengthen African voice in global governance and international relations? What's your approach to negotiating partnership with external actors such as the EU, China, and the US? How do you promote African interests in global forums like UN and G20? Regarding SATM?
Sorry, I said one question at a time.
Okay,
thank you.
I need to add one question. How do you advance the implementation of the single African air transport market, SATM, to boost connectivity and economic integration? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, one is the African Free Trade Area agreement. This is now getting to be three years old, but it still has not had the impact that was required. The inter-African trade still has not moved much from 15%. As you know, the inter-European trade stands at 70%. Inter-Asian trade is at 50%. Even in South American is over 30%. So we know the factors. One is the infrastructure. And this is something that we want to fast track so that we can have infrastructure opening up the borders across the continent. And secondly, the non-tariff barriers that have been imposed by member states of the continent. And this again is something that we need to address. As you know, there is a reform of the AU process which is ongoing. It was initially led by the president of Rwanda, Mr. Kagame. Kagame has written a report which has now been handed over to the new chair, President William Ruto of Kenya. And we were with President Ruto here 2 days ago when we talked to the diplomats here. about these challenges and how these reforms can be carried out. If these reforms are carried out, they will enable the AU to deal with these issues, and we can be able to raise the inter-African trade from what it is today to 40%, which is what is being aimed at by 2030. It's the same thing now. It will then also help us in dealing with our other trading partners, that is the EU and also China and even the US. You see, US, we have got AGOA, which has been ongoing, and we think that we need to improve on AGOA. The EU, we also have been negotiating and scale up the negotiations so that the trade can be more fairer in favor of Africa. You see, for example, you take just a simple item, coffee. You see, coffee is produced primarily in Africa and in South America. But we find that a European country, I will not mention which one, earns more out of coffee than all these coffee-producing countries, Brazil and Africa, put together. So, because the auction center, it's not in Africa or South America. It is somewhere in Europe. How do you change this so that the African coffee producers can benefit? There are so many other things that we need to negotiate so that we get a fair deal on the international market generally. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw one last hand, and since not so many ladies have spoken, I see one across the room, please. Where's the microphone? Oh, there's one at the back. Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll take the lady at the back, the lady here, and
okay.
And one there. The lady, not the gentleman. The gentleman already spoke. 3 ladies.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My questions are, as we all know that everybody...
Please introduce yourself and the media house.
Rahma Mohammed from Tirata 97.6 FM station in Addis.
I can't see her. Can you move?
Can you try and stand this side so that the candidate at least can appreciate and see you?
Okay. So shall I proceed? Okay, my questions are, the first one is, as we all know that there are many ongoing conflicts in Africa, especially DRC and the Sudan case. So what are we expect from Raila Odinga if you are selected as a chairperson? What are you going to do to solve and also to make sure that the peace and stability of the continent? What are you going to do on this? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, the conflicts not only in Africa, there's conflict all over the world. But you see, where there's conflict, there's a solution. Like you mentioned specifically the DRC, in eastern DRC, there's that conflict that has been going on for a long time. So conflicts which are internal, but the conflicts which are have got external actors and players. So you just need to find a way of bringing the protagonists to a negotiating table. You see, DRC issue did not start yesterday. It has been there for a long time. And some of us who have been long enough, have seen it, and have actually, sometimes we have been pained by what has been happening. So many innocent lives have been lost in the process of this conflict. It can be resolved, and in my view, it must be resolved. I have had an occasion to talk to the protagonists in this issue, and I've said that we can sit down and find a lasting solution to this problem. Right now, you've got interests left, right, and center. There's tension between the DRC, Rwanda, Uganda, and Kenya. We can resolve this issue by getting the major actors together to sit together and agree on a solution, in my view. So what we intend to do is to not to apportion blame. Who is wrong, who is right. It is wrong for people to die, irrespective of who is responsible. So we need to sit down and find a lasting solution to this problem. You know that foreigners who are non-Africans are also involved because they have got vested interests in some of those conflicts. Some of them benefit from the chaos that exists there. So what we intend to do is not to apportion blame, but to address the solution to this issue. I'm sure we can find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Konji Zaude. I'm working at the local television station. I think we are focusing on the peace and security of the continent as a woman, because women are the ones who are suffering out of this endless war throughout the continent. My focus also on the silencing the gun, which is the Agenda 2063 of the AU's. How do you address your measures to keep the gun silence throughout the continent? And also there are so many armed groups in Africa. What are you going to do with those groups who, which are creating war, disability, and displaced the societies where they are living and who create the problem across the continent? What measures are you going to take throughout your administration time? Thank you.
Yes, as you rightly said that they say the guns will be silent by 2020, but they are not silent. They are still loud and speaking very loudly. Yes, I said when I was making my comments earlier here that you need to address the root causes of this problem in order to find a solution. You know, some of them is historical, some of them have got the roots on resource sharing, some of them are ethnic, some of them are cultural, some of them have got to do with the regions, regional conflicts, and so on. So what you need to do is to address the causative factors. What is it? Some of them to do with poverty in society. Some of them has to do with the lack of infrastructure. We have seen, for example, in Kenya, there are areas where to go to the certain part of Kenya, you would have to have police escorts, escorting 100 vehicles, some police in front and police at the tail. is when you could pass those areas. But when we put up infrastructure, proper highway, those areas, those bodies just disappeared. By opening up the country through infrastructure, it is a major solution to these problems. Because some areas where you see those gorillas running around, they are unreachable. Therefore, they can commit crimes, kill people, and they cannot be reached. They know where to go and hide completely. So, opening up the country is one of the solutions. Then secondly, creating wealth. First, putting up education facilities so that people can be able to go to school. And then bringing investment in the areas. Bringing manufacturing unit factories in the area, putting up housing, modern housing in the regions and so on, open up those areas. So it is not something that you deal with just instantly, but it is a process. I'm sure that we can find a lasting solution to these problems generally. Okay?
Thank you. The final question at that table.
Thank you, Right Honorable. I'm coming from my own media, Africa in Change, which is focused on youth in Africa. My questions are two. The first one is, as you know, Agenda 2063 is coming very faster. So about good governance, what are the measures that you have planned to do?
What you understand is group?
Pardon, sir?
Repeat the question, please.
Okay. My first question is related to good governance. Agenda 2063, one of the theme is bringing a good governance to Africa. So what is your plan to implement this in a very serious way, maybe abstaining state countries who are repeatedly participating in war, or bringing the governments into court, not to ICC, but the African court. You can't hear me?
Good governance. It's about good governance.
The first one is good governance and measures that are taken to make sure we have good governance.
Thank you.
The second one is...
No, one question only, please.
Okay, recommendation then. How are you going to make independent, the EU independent from other incomes, like bringing our own financial independence? Thank you.
The question is, how are we going to enhance good governance in Africa? And how can we enhance the independence of the African Union?
Thank you so much. Good governance, as you know, African countries are not uniform. They're coming from different historical backgrounds. But what you need to do is basically have a basic minimum standards that must be enforced for a country to remain a member of the Union. As you can see, in the EU, they have standards that they have set up. EU. And they keep on evaluating the country's performance, even those which are members of the EU. For example, your system of governance, your systems of doing elections in the country, the systems of security, the issues of corruption, and so on. So we need to set up standards because, you know, you had this Africa peer review mechanism which is there, but you need to take the reports that are coming from the institution seriously, by enforcing those recommendations, ensuring that states keep on moving towards the ideal. This, in my view, is what will help to strengthen democracy within the continent. Because my view is that democracy is very critical to good governance in the continent. So it's not something that you need to wash away. You must do it and ensure that, because already you've got these countries as members, you must ensure that there is improvement towards the ideal which has been set by the institution. That to me is very critical. And the people themselves need to be allowed to speak, so that people's voices are heard. Because they say that is the wearer of the shoe who knows where the shoe is pinching. And this is the people. Because there's some government themselves who will give you because of a rosy picture of themselves. You find an election is held in a country and you see that 99.9% of registered people voted, and they voted just for a particular way. So you need to have a standard of measuring performance. Then going forward, how to make AU independent as an institution is by ensuring that the member states make their contributions to the AU. Like the talk of 0.2% of the tariffs or levy of imports from non-AU members being remitted to the kitty of AU. If that are to be implemented, the AU would not need to beg from elsewhere. We'll be able to find most of their affairs directly.
Thank you so much for that. Colleagues, I know we have so many questions, but that's the much that we can take because there are other engagements and we also have travel plans. Let me also take this opportunity to inform that yes, we are receiving, as we sit here, requests for exclusive interviews where we organize this so that all of us could be at the same place and post questions and capture the responses to that. So we will not be in a position to offer exclusive interviews except for the AFP who had made an earlier request and which had been granted, and that's the much time that we do have. So you will bear with us that we are not able to grant more exclusive interviews. With that, I just want to also make a second announcement that we do have lunch for you all. So kindly, after this lunch is served, let's give a round of applause to the candidate for the responses he has had. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the members of the Fourth Estate. You play a critical role, a very critical role in telling the story of Africa. And since you're the ones telling this story, that role is important in helping Africa advance its story in terms of the solutions that we are putting in place to address some of the challenges that you have so eloquently put. Therefore, I would like to encourage you to continue to tell the story of Africa as it is in terms of the programs under Agenda 2063, in terms of the solutions or options that the candidate has offered going forward in terms of addressing the issues that we have at the continent. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, lunch is served. Thank you. And this session is adjourned.
I've traveled the length and breadth of this beautiful continent, and I've seen the faces of Africa's future. I understand the continent, and I see the faces of our children, full of hope and energy, and unbound by the borders of yesterday. I dream of an Africa where those borders and colonial languages no longer divide us. From the hills of Kenya, the deserts of Sahara and the Kalahari, from the lakes of Great Rift to the rainforests of Central Africa, from Indian Ocean to the Atlantic, Africa must be one. I believe in the story of the African lion. The lion is an African animal, is a king of the jungle. The Cameroonian national soccer team is called the Indomitable Lions. The soccer team of Senegal is called the Lions of Teranga. The soccer team of Morocco is called the Atlas Lions. Here in Eastern Africa, we call it the Simba, king of the jungle. When the king roars, the jungle listens. But I'm here as the African lion. I've been asleep in the jungles of the Congo, but now I'm awake and I'm sitting on African gold, African oil, African diamonds, African iron and copper ores. And I have the ability to transform all these materials that I have into wealth for the benefit of my people. I'm ready to serve. My heart is ready, and my hands are steady And with your support, I shall get the opportunity to be of service to Africa, the cradle of mankind. I am made in Eastern Africa for Africa.
To the African people, Kenya presents to you a candidate who will give the AU visibility and a deserving place